Section 10 of A Visit to the Holy Land. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 5 of A Visit to the Holy Land, Egypt and Italy, Part 2, by Ida L. Pfeiffer. The heat is said not to be more oppressive at Smyrna during the summer than at Constantinople. Spring, however, commences here earlier, and the autumn is longer. This fact, I thought, accounted for the lovely vegetation, which was here so much more forward than at Constantinople. Herr von Kramer's country house stands in the midst of a smiling garden. It is spacious and built of stone. The large and lofty apartments are flagged with marble or tiles. In the garden I found the first date palm, a beautiful tree with a tall, slender stem, from the extremity of which depend leaves 5 or 6 feet in length, forming a magnificent crown. In these regions, and also in Syria, whither my journey afterwards led me, the date palm does not attain so great a height as in Egypt, nor does it bear any fruit, but only stands as a noble ornament beside the pomegranate and orange trees. My attention was also attracted to numerous kinds of splendid acacias. Some of these grew to an immense size, as high as the walnut trees of my own country. The villas of the townspeople all strongly resemble each other. The house stands in the midst of the garden, and the whole is surrounded by a wall. In the evening I visited some of the peasants, in company with Herr von C. This gentleman informed me that these people were very poor, but still I found them decently clad and comfortably lodged in large roomy dwellings built of stone. Altogether the condition of affairs seems here vastly superior to that in Galicia and in Hungary near the Carpathian Mountains. I reckoned the day I spent with this amiable family among the most pleasant I had yet passed. How gladly would I have accepted their hearty invitation to remain several weeks with them! But I had lost so much time in Constantinople that on the morning of May 20th I was compelled to bid adieu to Frau von C. and her dear children. Herr von C. escorted me back to Smyrna. We took the opportunity of roaming through many streets of the Franks quarter, which I found, generally speaking, pretty and cheerful enough, and moreover level and well paved. The handsomest street is that in which the consuls reside. The houses are finely built of stone, and the halls are tastefully paved with little colored pebbles, arranged in the form of wreaths, stars, and squares. The inhabitants generally take up their quarters in these entrance halls during the day, as it is cooler there than in the rooms. To nearly every house a pretty garden is attached. The Turkish town is certainly quite different. It is built of wood, and is angular and narrow. Dogs lie about in the streets, just as at Broussa and Constantinople. And why should it be otherwise here? Turks live in all this quarter, and they do not feel the necessity of clean and airy dwellings like the fastidious Franks. The bazaars are not roofed, and here also the costlier portion of the wares is kept under lock and key. It is well worth the traveller's while to make an excursion to Bernaba, a place lying on the sea-coast not far from the town, and serving, like Halizar, as a retreat for the townspeople during the summer. The views in this direction are various, and the road is good. The whole appearance of the place is that of a very extended village, with all its houses standing in the midst of gardens and surrounded by walls. From the Acropolis we have a fine view in every direction, and find, in fact, a union of advantages only met with separately elsewhere. In Smyrna I found the most beautiful women I had yet seen, and even during my further journey I met with few who equaled, and none who surpassed them. These fairy forms are, however, only to be sought among the Greeks. The natural charms of these graces are heightened by the rich costume they wear. They have a peculiarly tasteful manner of fastening their little round fez caps, beneath which their rich hair falls in heavy plaits upon their shoulders, or is wound with a richly embroidered handkerchief round the head and brow. Smyrna is, however, not only celebrated as possessing the loveliest women, but also as the birthplace of one of the greatest men. O Homer, in the Greece of today thou wouldst find no materials for thine immortal Iliad. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon we quitted the harbor of Smyrna. In this direction the town is seen to much greater advantage after we have advanced a mile than when we approached it from Constantinople, for now the Turks' town lies spread in all its magnitude before us, whereas on the other side it is half hidden by the Franks' quarter. The sea ran high, and adverse winds checked the speed of our good ship, but I am thankful to say that, except when the gale is very strong, it does not affect my health. I felt perfectly well, and stood enjoying the aspect of the waves as they came dancing towards our vessel. In Smyrna our company had been augmented by the arrival of a few more Franks. May 21st. Yesterday evening and all this day we have been sailing among islands. The principal of these were Scio, Samos, and Kos, and even these form a desolate picture of bare, inhospitable mountains and desert regions. On the island of Kos alone we saw a neat town with strong fortifications. May 22nd. This morning, shortly after 5 o'clock, we ran into the superb harbor of Rhodes. Here, for the first time, I obtained a correct notion of a harbor. That of Rhodes is shut in on all sides by walls and masses of rock, leaving only a gap of 150 to 200 paces in width for the ships to enter. Here every vessel can lie in perfect safety, be the sea outside the bar as stormy as it may. The only drawback is, that the entering of this harbor, a task of some difficulty in calm weather, becomes totally impracticable during a storm. A round tower stands as a protection on either side of the entrance to the harbor. The venerable church of St. John and the palace of the Compter can be distinguished towering high above the houses and fortifications. Our captain imparted to us the pleasant intelligence that we might spend the hours between this and 3 o'clock in the afternoon on shore. Our ship had for some time lain surrounded by little boats, and so we lost no time in being conveyed to the land. The first thing we did on reaching it was to ask questions concerning the ancient site of the celebrated Colossus. But we could gain no information, as neither our books nor the people here could point out the place to us with certainty, so we left the coast to make up for the disappointment by exploring the ancient city. Rhodes is surrounded with 3 rows of strong fortifications. We passed over 3 drawbridges before entering the town. We were quite surprised to see the beautiful streets, the well-kept houses, and the excellent pavement. The principal street, containing the houses of the ancient Knights of St. John, is very broad, with buildings so massively constructed of stone as almost to resemble fortresses. Heraldic bearings, with dates carved in stone, grace many of the Gothic gateways. The French shield, with the 3 lilies and the date 1402, occurs most frequently. On the highest point in the city are built the church of St. John and the house of the governor. All the exteriors seem in such good preservation that one could almost fancy the knights had only departed to plant their victorious banner on the Holy Sepulchre. They have, in truth, departed to a better home. Centuries have breathed upon their ashes, scattered in all regions of the earth. But their deeds have been chronicled both in heaven and among men, and the heroes still live in the admiration of posterity. The churches, the house of the governor, and many other buildings are not nearly so well preserved inside as a first glance would lead us to imagine. The reason of this is that the upper part of the town is but thinly inhabited. A gloomy air of silence and vacancy reigns around. We could wander about everywhere without being stared at or annoyed by the vulgar and envious. Mr. Bartlett, the Englishman, made a few sketches in his drawing-book of some of the chief beauties, such as the Gothic gateways, the windows, balconies, etc., and no inhabitant came to disturb him. The pavement in the city, and even in the streets around the fortifications, consists wholly of handsome slabs of stone, often of different colors, like mosaic, and in such good preservation that we could fancy the work had been but recently concluded. This certainly partly owing to the fact that no loaded wagon ever crushes over these stones, for the use of vehicles is entirely unknown in these parts. Everything is carried by horses, asses, or camels. Cannons dating from the time of the Genoese still stand upon the ramparts. The carriages of these guns are very clumsy, the wheels consisted of round discs without spokes. From our tower of observation we can form a perfect estimate of the extent and strength of the fortifications. The city is completely surrounded by 3 lofty walls, which seem to have been calculated to last an eternity, for they still stand almost uninjured in all their glory. In some places images of the Virgin, of the size of life, are hewn out of the walls. The neighborhood of Rhodes is most charming and almost resembles a park. Many country houses lie scattered throughout this natural garden. The vegetation is here no less luxuriant than in Smyrna. The architecture of the houses already begins to assume a new character. Many dwellings have towers attached, and the roofs are flat, forming numerous terraces, which are all built of stone. Some streets in the lower part of the town, inhabited chiefly by Jews, are bordered with cannon balls, and present a most peculiar appearance. I was also much struck with the costumes worn by the country people, who were dressed quite in the Swabian fashion. It was in vain that I inquired the reason of this circumstance. The books we had with us gave no information on the subject, and I could not ask the natives through my ignorance of their language. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon we were once more on board, and an hour afterwards we sailed out into the open sea. Today we saw nothing further except a high and lengthened mountain range on the Asiatic mainland. It was a branch of the Taurus. The highest peaks glistened like silver in the evening light, enveloped in a garment of snow. May 23rd. Today our organs of vision had a rest, for we were sailing on the high seas. Late in the evening, however, the sailors descried the mountains of Cyprus looming in the far distance like a misty cloud. With my less practised eyes I could see nothing but the sunset at sea, a phenomenon of which I had a more exalted conception. The rising and setting of the sun at sea is not nearly so striking a spectacle as the same phenomenon in a rocky landscape. At sea the sky is generally cloudless in the evening, and the sun gradually sinks, without refraction of rays or prismatic plays of colors, into its ocean bed, to pursue its unchanging course the next day. How infinitely more grand is this spectacle when seen from the Rigi Kulm in Switzerland! There it is really a spectacle, in contemplating which we feel impelled to fall on our knees in speechless adoration, and admire the wisdom of the Almighty in His wondrous works. May 24th. On mounting to the deck this fine morning at 5 o'clock, I could distinguish the island of Cyprus, which looks uglier the nearer we approach. Both the foreground and the mountain peaks have an uncomfortable, barren air. At 10 o'clock we entered the harbor of Larnaca. The situation of this town is anything but fine. The country looks like an Arabian desert, and a few unfruitful date palms rise beside the roofless stone houses. I should not have gone on shore at all, if Dr. Fauslank, whose acquaintance I had made at Constantinople, and who had been appointed quarantine physician here for 4 weeks before my departure, had not come to fetch me. The streets of Larnaca are unpaved, so that we were obliged literally to wade more than ankle deep in sand and dust. The houses are small, with irregular windows, sometimes high and sometimes low, furnished with wooden grated shutters, and the roofs are in the form of terraces. This style of building I found to be universal throughout Syria. Of a garden or green place not a trace was to be seen. The sandy expanse reaches to the foot of the mountains, which, viewed from this direction, form an equally barren picture. Behind these mountains the appearance of the landscape is said to be very fruitful, but I did not penetrate into the interior, nor did I go to Nicosia, the capital of the island, distant some 12 miles from Larnaca. Dr. Fauslank took me to his house, which had an appearance of greater comfort than I had expected to find, for it consisted of 2 spacious rooms which might almost have been termed halls. An agreeable coolness reigned everywhere. Neither stoves nor chimneys were to be seen, as winter here is replaced by a very mild rainy season. The heat in summer is often said to be unsupportable, the temperature rising to more than 36 degrees Reaumur. Today it reached 30 degrees in the sun. We drank to my safe return to my country in real old Cyprian wine. Shall I ever see it again? I hope so, if my journey progresses as favorably as it has begun. But Syria is a bad country, and the climate is difficult to bear. Yet with courage and perseverance for my companions, I may look forward to the accomplishment of my task. The good doctor seemed much annoyed that he had nothing to offer me but Cyprian wine and a few German biscuits. At this early season fruit is not to be had, and cherries do not flourish here because the climate is too hot for them. In Smyrna I ate the last for this year. When I re-embarked in the afternoon, Mr. Bartlett came with the English consul, who wished, he said, to make the acquaintance of a lady possessing sufficient courage to undertake so long and perilous a journey by herself. His astonishment increased when he was informed that I was an unpretending native of Vienna. The consul was kind enough to offer me the use of his house if I returned by way of Cyprus. He also inquired if he could give me some letters of recommendation to the Syrian consuls. I was touched by this hearty politeness on the part of a perfect stranger, an Englishman moreover, a race on whom we are accustomed to look on as cold and exclusive. End of section 10.